such a time as this.
And welcome back to For Such a Time as This. This is your weekend wrap-up with Prof. Abby and Professor Chris. We want to discuss the topic that Donald Trump is going back and forth with these four Democratic Congresswomen, one particularly, Ilhan Omar, the self-professing, and she's a Muslim. And Trump got into it with her. I want to play two clips that shows you how we got to this point. The first clip is going to be Ilhan Omar. I believe I pronounced that right. She said that she loves America more than any of you jokers who were born here. Trump. So let me just play that first one. And then we'll go to the second one.
It is that I am anti-American because I criticize the United States, and I believe as an immigrant I probably love this country more than anyone that is naturally born, and because I am ashamed of it continuing to live in its hypocrisy, that I work so hard to make sure that others who've had that, like, why just be American, why don't you be more like an American, can continue to say that. Why can't you be more like an American? Because it used to be a very positive thing. We export American exceptionalism, the great America, the land of liberty and justice. That is, you know, if you ask anybody in walking on the side of the street somewhere in the middle of the world, they will tell you America the Great. But we don't live those values here. And so
we don't live those values here. Let me, before we go to this second clip, I got to put this in context. So, Abigail, her last name is not Williams, but let's just say her last name is Williams. Abby Williams' family adopted me when I was 11. And let's say I'm 31 now. And I've been adopted into the Williams family, and you know, 31, 20 years in the Williams family. I'm not going to turn to Abby Williams and her family and say, you know what? I love the Williams family more than you guys who were born Williamses. And you know what? I think I represent the Williams family better than you do. And as a matter of fact, when people talk about the Williams family, I'm ashamed of the Williams family because the Williams family is not living up to what I think the Williams family should be living up to. I'm ashamed. And when people used to talk about the Williams family being so wonderful, they said the Williams family was great. Well, it's not great anymore because the Williams family, Abby, your family is now hypocrites. And you guys are not living up to the Williams value because me being here for 20 years, I'm a better William than you are. This is crazy. This is crazy.
She made no sense. She gave absolutely zero examples, illustrations. I mean, she spoke for, 3 or 4 minutes, and it's like nailing Jell-O to the wall.
Yeah, that clip.
She never really said anything.
The clip was only about a minute or so. But, again, she left Somalia because of the civil war in Somalia. I believe she came to this country when she was about 11. Spent some time in Canada. Came at 11. And she's roughly 31, 32 now. So she's been there approximately 20 years. Being here 20 years, she's now going to lecture you jokers who were born here. You know, native-born Americans. She's a better American, and she represents America. She loves America better than any of you guys. I mean, just the sheer... You've been here 20 years. How do you come in here and tell people who are from World War II you love them more? You love America more than the people who died in wars for America. I don't. Prof. Chris, anything before we go to the second one?
Well, I agree with Abby. You know, what are the specifics
examples of hypocrisy.
No.
And then what American values is she talking about? And that's where I know it's generalizations and it's an emotional discussion or a plea. But being American is not what we look like. It's not even based on religious belief. It's freedom and independence. The individual. America was founded on the idea of the individual and freedom. And to move into this group identity is beyond what the founders originally thought or established.
Yeah, President Trump didn't quite like that. There's a lot of Americans who didn't like that, but our president, he sort of fired back. Here's the next clip.
Send her back. That is the phrase and the debate that has consumed Washington and much of the country this week. His tweets this week about those 4 congresswomen, and let's put them up, why don't they go back and help fix the totally broken and crime-infested places from which they came, are the latest in a long string of controversial comments by Mr. Trump, some of which I know that you helped draft. Here are a few.
I want him to show his birth certificate. There's something on that birth certificate that he doesn't like. They're bringing crime, they're rapists, and some, I assume, are good people. Donald J. Trump is calling for a total and complete shutdown of Muslims entering the United States. You had many people in that group other than neo-Nazis and white nationalists, okay? And the press has treated them absolutely unfairly.
Why shouldn't someone see all of that as racist?
Because it has nothing to do with racism?
At the very worst, you could call it xenophobia to suggest they go back to their country, quote unquote. But, it's interesting. The rest of that tweet said, then come back and tell us how to do it right.
He was talking specifically, out of the 4, he was talking specifically to Ilhan Omar, who was the only one who was not here. He was not talking to the other 3 who were born here, right? Correct. He was talking specifically to the lady who's been here for only approximately 20 years, who fled her native country because her native country slipped into civil war. It was a failed state, and it ain't doing too well today. And so he was saying, how can you come over here? Basically, how can you be here for 20 years and lecture the people who've been here their whole lives, who bled for this country, who died for this country, who sacrificed for this country? Who are you? And now they're making this out to be a racial issue. Prof. Abby, you said it wasn't race.
No.
Help us out.
Well, okay, we're talking about, let's see. We're talking about, I'm trying to remember what the clips were.
Birth certificates.
The birth certificate, which had nothing to do with race, although so many people said any criticism of Obama was racially motivated, which was 100% false. It had to do with illegal immigrants from Mexico, which has nothing to do with race. It has to do with having control of our borders and knowing who's coming in and making the decision whether it's a good idea. Who should be in and how many people, etc. It's about controlling the border. I'm trying to think of what the other 2 examples were. Help me out.
I don't remember.
The birth certificate.
Oh yeah, the birth certificate. Boy, that's a whole topic unto itself.
Yes, but it had nothing to do with race.
Correct.
And the point was none of those did. But Chris, I'd have to look at it.
Chris Wallace shocked me. Here's the thing. He said this. He said
one thing though with the tweet. I mean, Trump did write "they," so you can get the impression he's talking about all of them.
Yes.
So I can see where that gets confusing. Yeah. But the rest of it is really I'm applying my standard of what I think racism is, and I just didn't see it.
And so here's the thing. He said, go back to your country, fix it, then come back. You know what? I think if the person was from Ireland, and Ireland was in a civil war, go back to Ireland, fix Ireland, and come back.
Well, and I think it also, it's important to note, why did she come here?
Because,
She came here because it was so much better,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So
She's ashamed of it
how
now.
bad can we be if you're leaving your own country to come here? It's just nonsensical.
So you all see no racial angle to this at all? No.
I don't.
No,
And-
I agree. I don't.
And when one of the examples was when he had the ban on Muslims. It was temporary ban, and it was also until we got a system in place where we could actually vet people carefully. That was what that was about, and it was temporary. It had nothing to do with race.
But Abby, you can't see that's clearly racial, isn't it?
Well, it had nothing to do with really individual Muslims either. It was 6 or 7 countries that were.
But in the clip, remember,
Hotbeds
he
of
did say all
terrorism.
Muslims. He did say all Muslims.
Oh yes, in the clip.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
But let me say this. I don't care if you're a black Muslim, a white Muslim, a red, pink, or green Muslim. As long as you're a Muslim. That's what he was calling for.
Right.
And
That's
so
not race.
that's not race, that's religion.
Yeah.
That's
Yep.
religion.
Exactly.
And so, again, you lose the power of racism every time
Exactly.
everything is claimed to be racist. It's
One
not.
of my favorite movie lines. I love The Incredibles, where the bad guy says, "I want everyone to become superheroes because when everybody's superheroes, no one will be. If everybody's a racist, everyone's a racist, then there is no racism.
Right.
'Cause
And
you
so
don't know
real racism
That's
then
right.
will go unaddressed.
That's
right.
It's
You're wrong. We know one thing: Trump's a racist. We know that. We know that.
And don't forget the other clip was he talked about where the white nationalists and Nazis,
Oh, that's right.
not Charlottesville,
yeah, it was in Charlotte.
That's right.
and he clearly pointed out the racists, the Nazis and the white supremacists, as yes, they were there, but there were others
Right.
that got lumped in, and that wasn't fair, and that's who
Exactly.
he was defending in a sense. There's good people on both sides.
Yeah.
He wasn't saying there was good Nazis. There's no such thing.
No.
And so I thought that was disingenuous because when I went back and heard the whole clip, that's when it hit me. Oh, got
That
it.
was
He's separating
completely
them over
disingenuous.
here,
Yeah.
but now everybody else on both sides, because that's the basis of having discussions and arguments. Is you got people on both sides. They need to be reasonable. Nazis and white supremacists are not reasonable.
No.
So-
And
To
I,
be
and I would
nice.
say, and Dennis Prager likes to make the point, and I think he's right, that we're at the point where there is so little real institutionalized racism that these people are making it up.
Now you know you're going to get some comments on that, right?
Probably so. But why would you use these examples as racism if there's so much real racism out there?
I got it.
And why do you have people staging fake racial incidents? I mean, there have been several of those, especially at universities,
Well,
claiming racially motivated crimes that never happened. Jussie Smollett.
Well, he's still saying there was some white dudes that did that too. But anyway, give us let's end with the Christian angle. What's the Christian angle to all of this? Who wants to go first?
Abby,
There-
Okay.
ladies first.
Thank you, Professor Chris. You know what? I agree with Dr. King and Galatians. There is no Jew, there is no Greek, there is no male, there is no female. All come to the cross with nothing in their hands. God doesn't care. As far as I'm concerned, it's a non-issue. And the further we get away from that, the further our country sinks.
And just to add to that, I believe this is all part of a plan to create chaos and confusion about what the purpose of God in the Bible and Christ on the cross really is. That we come to Him irregardless of what our quote-unquote group identity is. That our identity, that we're in Christ, and He doesn't care about those things. He cares of our heart, not what's outside.
Although interestingly enough, if you think about it, he wants people from every nation, every tribe, every tongue. He created those things. He created
He created all the variation we see in people.
Here's one thing, particularly from minority perspective. The enemy, the Satan, the devil, he would love for us to focus on racism.
Yes.
He would love for us to keep our hearts, minds, energies, and emotions on that topic. He would love for us, the church, to go on a mission to eradicate racism. Guess what? That's going to be a failed mission. The church's perspective and the church's job description is not to end racism. Racism will end when sin ends.
Yes.
It's not the church's focus. The church's focus is to preach a message of reconciliation between God and man. Only when a heart is reconciled between the individual and God that racism can be dealt with.
Yep.
No law from Springfield, no law from D.C. will end racism. Only the cross, only the gospel message. And I think the enemy has this strategy of just ginning up all of this racism. Guess what? Yes, racism is real. And here's another fact. It will be here until Christ ends sin.
That's
Deal
right.
with it.
It will never disappear.
Never.
But you shine the light on those things, the light of Christ. That's not loving. That's not how you look at others who are sinners just like us, just like me.
How do you solve it? How do you really solve it? Reconcile God to men.
Yep.
But that's not the message. The message is we solve it by passing legislation from Springfield and D.C. And I think they have proven in the last few years they're useless. But anyway, last words, anyone? I think those were the last words.
Well, we shouldn't take, you know what, the whole thing is designed, I think, by the enemy
Yes.
of our souls to take our eyes off the ball.
Correct.
And focus on things that aren't important.
Yeah. Well, thank you. We'll be back again next week with a few weekend roundups. Thank you, Prof. Chris, Prof. Abby. Thank you all. See you back here.
Thank you, Pastor James.
Next week. Yep.
Thank you.
For such a time as this,